Hello, Americans and Russians, through and Germans. Through world wars, Americans, Russians, and Germans had collusion slash S that nobody wanted, except for how a breaching method made exceptions at countries A through Z before modern religious messengers were born. Part of what they demonstrated is that already from off the campus's locations, there had been criminally foreign influence uses of the names of the people of the sciences in their syntax, therefore, human functioning, human appreciation of how we are a human species body of individual bodies, with all group differences demonstrating that there is relativity slash hyperrelativity. There are other species bodies that we didn't generate. We didn't invent how fish and birds have two eyes. Even bugs, it looks like they have two eyes. There, something else is there too. And a distinct identity of value slash value progression that is neither us nor them, but is all things anyway. That identity that is all things, even if they are made up, it's volume science slash hypervolume science is inseparable from the finite parts, distinctly from how, but not while non-distinctly from the group parts, distinctly from while non-distinctly from the simultaneous parts slash hyper simultaneous. And I say it that way because it is also shown nature shows us it is functional. How it has parts of its complete identity of value progression, complete body of as identity. English and other ancient languages, it is more probable and demonstrable that they were revealed to teach about how we are an identity of value progression, as an identity of a trinity nature that is inseparable from where we are a singular nature. Because, like, for example, the singular identity of a cell has manifested the individual identities as the parts, as the cell nucleus, as the cell wall, and as the cell nucleus, the cell body, and as the cell wall slash S, and with appreciation of gases in their element, in their mixture, and of water and its elements coming through, where the cell wall slash S are connected. Well, not, but anyway. As by that same identity of value slash value progression is showing us, it is not ourselves, it is not the other species bodies, but it is all things anyway. It is generating all differences. But we have been systems tactically ulterior from its own since before modern religious messengers were born. So we have not had free speech. But everyone also had to pretend other. At Germany, at America, and at Russia, through world wars, psychiatry and the foundation of it's only concentrated there though. But psychiatry has roles with databases, and then further with them as roles with how they're now with computers. The databases of the republic for which we stand, the identity slash identities plural of relativity slash relativities to ourselves. With the Campus Marcius is functional with the republic for which we stand. And there are proofs nature shows us too to appreciate exceptions and exception nature with the campus, which is about physically discernible and invisible but still discernible. And everything's about the hyper invisible but still the slash hyper invisible but still discernible. Like there's that one identity of value slash value progression that is why and how. Its identity relationship to itself and the value of that, for example, is why and how. Completely different species bodies have two eyes. It is why and how, even though world wars, so they have debates about world wars. Larry Johnson's one of the world experts who went to Russia in 1972. I put a link to the video with Judge Napolitano. Used to be a Fox News legal expert, used to be a Superior Court judge. But he knows about, FISA courts, international law, and things to an extent. Every expert, though, and the differences of the best experts, the worst experts, this is a breaching method that keeps what they pretend is critique. In other words, they change or fake what people say, so people won't be able to get, mandated law followed properly. While the breaching method has other pretended originally and still. Others communicated for James Madison, for our founders, and about their use of his plan, regardless if they wanted to or not. That's also we're supposed to be honest about that. James Madison's plan was to force everyone to break the laws of the torture, extortion, and slavery method. Now, instantly, at key locations, they did that in more than 13 states. There were more than 13 states. They couldn't do it everywhere. They did at key locations, which made phenomena of all kinds of troubles. Everyone had no choice but to rely on the unity. There are proofs, too, that Native Americans helped this unity. Nature itself shows us that, too. Native Americans are 3/3 of our founders. And then coupled with James Madison and the Native Americans that agree, they just want to get they want to get back to the hyper-native human species volume science of individual bodies with all group differences demonstrated by nature itself, how it is generated by that which is hyper-native pure. Nature itself shows us to appreciate the difference between president and / chief is not just how they're incompatible volumes, which is positive because this is about hyper-additional nature. But there's a difference between making hyper-additional nature as systems tactical ulterior. It's from its own, where and how we appreciate words / values, about value progression, like crimes, too. In 1987 and in 1985, when I was in 6th grade and 4th grade, there are people involved with body dumping spots and Russians and Americans and a whole bunch of other countries, distinctly from people that were in my third grade, but not in my class. There are people that know our names in other classes, but there are only three branches of government at countries A through Z, at locations, areas, and states. And there's intelligence associated with them, foreign and domestic shared. And they are demonstrating how they are directed to hide such things and such quality aspects in nature associated with it. Increasingly, they're trying to frame the kids, even if they catch them for real crimes. Each age of it, they're against middle age, all multi-front against ourselves. Know how they lock people in elderly homes. All legitimate truths about why that would be a good idea are exploited. See, this is a multi-front where we have left, forsaken. This is relative to where and to how and to why. Even though I didn't want to try to debate that the suburbs are tactically to nature to cause negative value nature progressions, acts of nature. They will have inherent to, active to, progressive to. Their quality aspects in their nature itself, demonstration / S of the same thing. Let alone if they want to debate, pretend that the cities are free. The breaching method has offensively people pretending passions and emotions about what they think is the value of jobs. So they could, as multi-front roles where people jump in and fake and change what others say. As collusion / S2 with a predicate acts with facts method / S. Involving and having involved the names at and next to each, and the differences at and next to each age and nature of campus you went to. If you were homeschooled, that difference, and as you as kids when you were homeschooled and your parents as adults, even the differences of the campuses was exploited. Because don't forget, and pay attention, because nature is demonstrating that it's generating all differences. And we could hyper additionally make a phenomenon of agree to be systems, tactical, individual, grouped in together by an order, tactical theory than its own. But that's with, it forces our special difference from here. And it forces Earth's special difference from here. But the rest of Earth has no criminal foreign influences, let alone criminal foreign influences / hyper-criminal foreign influences and self-valued roles, otherwise sensing for the breaching method. That's what's manifest at countries A through Z. Harvard Hospital has roles intercities with fire departments, with Russians and Americans, and people from Ukraine, in ways that where too is recorded where people have self-valued roles with uses of words like peace, with peaceful nuclear, peaceful energy generation, where and how they are also being used to sense for the breaching method and maintained by the breaching method that employed the suburbs denatured, that employed mass farming, the same method that had been sustained against Native Americans before Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, before they were called Native Americans, therefore, in 1492. In other words, before James Madison's plan was, and we know the databases, we know to an extent, the databases were criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, and there were roles needed pretending other or being sensed and hurt and worse and not adapted to if they try to pretend other. And even if as a majority of people, even if as everyone together. That's why it's important we understand what is actually discernible with the principles of history from before America was even founded, before religious messages were even born. If we actually examine the syntax of the names of the people, the sciences A through Z, there are a certain type of victim / hyper victim, simultaneously, victim predator / hyper predator. For example, it is manifest where and how people, inside the nature of debate, it contains quality aspects of nature used by a hyper-foreign breaching method that has suits and ties, counters, and exceptions. Faked on a mass scale, that's self-value. Again, tactically delusions raw. Psychiatry is tactically delusions raw, with principles treatments, and within the nature of debate itself as criminal insidiousness / hyper-criminal insidiousness. I am not a lawyer, but distinctly the northern colonies and the southern colonies both had roles with slavery, but through distinct nations and through distinct natures of international companies, and through distinct natures of all exception natures roles to keep an array, keeping other things, others ourselves too, functionally for the breaching method. A breaching method knew that at countries A through Z, we are now systems tactically ulterior from the human species body of individual bodies, with all group differences, therefore names, generated for that method that shows us its body to an extent that way. Because it's showing us it has a whole totally different species bodies of individual bodies, of a whole bunch of individual bodies with their own group differences. So we can discern there is one identity of value progression. There is one identity of relativity / hyper-relativity that we are capable of being to an extent, and then further where and how we are capable of being in, positive to each other, even when negative, as the species of the species bodies too, as its body. But in other words, we're not paying attention to nature and You have people speaking about crimes in America and Russia. They have all kinds of organized crime acts and methods with Connecticut campuses together, and with people involved with World Trade Center predicate acts, and with criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, rote readings of statutes and precedents regarding what's written online too, or said online. On a mass scale, they were shown that you need to hide that they're already self-valid roles with that. Increasingly, the prisons and named at the Connecticut corrections offices next to it are collusions also with names at or conjunctions to it, like just driving by too. There are proofs that people that drive by are being recorded. There's a Leahy family of doctors, the ones with intelligence, involved also in the Britain Superior Court, Harper courts, judges and prosecutors and their family members personally and professionally, forging names, fake identity theft, fraud, slanders, while tactically delusions raw, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids forced years apart, where they have roles with their kids and their families with that. And they have little kids pretending passions and emotions. So if the people describe it, it makes it look like there was a secret shift. They knew those people. They try to make fake. There's a Debbie Gold and her father, and there's a Lee Gold. Her father said, I never had a word of conversation with his father, but increasingly he's one of the ones involved on Griswold Street with a Rick Cianfaglione recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed his father did non-verbally, and he's got roles on Griswold Street with people involved with a Brian Silver with New Britain Superior Court, Connecticut District Court, and Hartford courts, involved also with the FBI, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their family members, also with people on all sides of criminal and civil cases that have been planting the same sequence shifts and roles as an array, as collusion /S, including at crime scenes with the courts and the judicial branch offices and the corrections offices, increasingly had and have collusion /S with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists at the same time, because there's also an worse hyper-foreign involved. So the nature debate contains quality aspects in nature that measure and maintain these. No, we have black pupils, whites of eyes. That's principle. See, this is the nature generates about principle, to reason, logic. This thing, in other words. But before 1972, before I believe his name is before Judge Napolitano's expert, a guest, Ray McGovern, he's in Russia right now. So in other words, there's a difference between peace and hyper peace, because nature shows us that. Because nature shows us there's such a thing as criminal insidiousness natures of peace, criminal insidiousness natures of truth used to lie, used to screen lies, truth put between lies. Also, a Mark Violet is one of the ones involved with Jewish themed and other religious themed people who are dishonest with like Ray McGovern made a big mistake saying prejudice and racism. Nature itself and our founders demonstrated for us to show that things like racism would be blamed on the breaching method. We have obligations. Our founders' communications are replaced. That's principle. James Madison's plan caused the Declaration of Independence. James Madison's plan caused the counter-extortion that George Washington agreed to help and partake with. Demonstrably, because he would have lost his life too if he didn't partake. And then everyone was tortured, extorted. In fact, human nature enslaved, therefore physically. But no one allows anyone to be honest about the extortion of George Washington, let alone of the founders who refer to themselves plural as James Madison and their use of his plan. See, we're supposed to understand then, even when he was a president after that, he still didn't have free speech. James Madison. They did declassified enough for us to know this. Increasingly interbranch family members, they time where other people are going to be. And make an exception. They also mixed with totally just fake ties, nature's ties to people. So on a mass scale, all natures of means to use the right to lie are used where they don't have the right to lie. They have to self-value serious things. Oh, well, there's problems, there's the problems with this country, A and Z, and but it has nothing to do with the things here. So that's how in other words, but we're going to have to do conscriptions and things like that. The generals are involved with the corner of South Sting Highway and Town Line Drive, involved all along Route 3 and its conjunctions with the same names. And that's one of the conjunctions is the state judicial branch offices. And and the same thing with the state corrections offices associated with prisons, and the word corrections. These are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, predicate acts with facts, methods, roles, with proven child abusers, leaders still first forest, with criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, readings of our history at countries A through Z. Use roles with self-value with handed out means to use the rights to lie and knowledge of good and evil to get over on the original founding principles. This is also showing an integrity not of criminal insidiousness natures to little kids at each age of fact-achieving nature. That nature demonstrates, in other words, since we were kids, people have been making confessions to us. If we pay attention to black pupils' whites of eyes, and how that's inseparable from proper scientific treatments, let alone with passions and emotions regarding American history principles. Right through world wars, there were collusions with natures of industry, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions raw here and there, because from off those, the difference of that worse, the difference of it, even when they're not in those cases, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, names that and next to news locations in the interbranch are putting the same sequence shifts, the same self-valued identity theft, fraud, slander, and predicate acts with facts methods, torture, extortion, and slavery method roles. There are mass evidence racketeering and collusion /S that our state judicial branch offices, corrections offices, and our courts had. Their family members with all natures of crime scenes, where and how this breach met a certain type of victim /hyper victim made and keeps the difference of that too used. So if we try to treat it like that, they're going to pretend it's debatable. That's why we have to keep them focused on the predicate acts with facts themselves. But they change and fake and self-value others doing that, what we say regarding predicate acts with facts. Channel 3 News has a whole bunch of direct and indirect recorded collusion /S with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with proven child abusers, leaders of the kids, and more then and now. And it's in such a way where good people are stay evil because of the extent of how they use crime methods are manifest. For example, they force everyone to speak through others. And that's one of the crime methods they do, where they attach everyone to faked and changed communications with everyone around themselves, including their family members, at different locations, intercities, and with people sticking into databases. And then they need to hide that later in the future. This breaching method showed the three branches of government. It showed their individuals, and then it shows their individuals grouped together. They have to keep things, blame the other things, others themselves, to defend their notions of their own integrity, where and how it is inseparable from subject treatments as they are actually manifest and with actual nature's obligations being haven't been replaced at each age and nature of campus and location. In other words, American history, there are three natures of of Native Americans that had to react to a hyper foreign and human fact treatment nature breaching method, and they didn't know how to respond fact treatment nature wise and physically, because the breaching method had already perfected against names A through Z as countries A through Z too, was because of what it did at locations, areas, and states. It forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded people to blame other things, others, ourselves for things that it did. And then for them to defend that. And then for those people who were wrongly punished, too, the probably mixed thing even went correctly. Those truths are used for lies. Sickly. That's all. In other words. So then they get everyone blaming each other correctly, but wrongly, exactly the way the hyperforeign needed, with itself left out, and itself observing that, and phenomenon that nature takes manifest with that simultaneously, in demonstration /S of abridgments of the syntax of the names of the people, the sciences, haven't been self-valued. And the difference of that, or the people that, using it, everyone is the names of the people, the sciences. The science, because the sciences share that identity. That is not our species, bodies, volume, humanities. It is not the other species, bodies, volumes. It is all things anyway, so it is. It is exceptions in exception nature itself. In ways that show us on a mass scale, there are faked exceptions. Faked exception nature is appreciated. Questions are asked, even still, in the form of confessions that a breaching method uses, a hyperforeign breaching method uses, effectively fluent to, from, as, with, and for all modern countries, effectively maintain self-valued roles, having been used remotely as self-valued roles too, forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading other things, others, ourselves, blame, from why and how. People want to have debates about things like principles, about what's historic, using the knowledge of good and evil to get over on everyone. How that's gotten away with is relative to where and how they jump into our conversations online, the intelligence community. The FBI has their Facebook page involved with the New Britain Superior Court's Facebook page and with the Facebook page of a principal upskirt nature of his campus Facebook page. And the department and Wethersfield Police have more sexual medical offenders with their own Facebook page, also involved with other police departments and sexual and medical offenders, also with the Facebook page of Hartford Hospital, involved with judges, prosecutors, and their family members, with criminal enterprises, plural, and with names of businesses and houses next to Hartford Hospital, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, speaking fake things into records, putting fake transcripts, collusion /S. A bunch of courts, judges, and prosecutors, even victims' advocates are associated with a Leahy family and people next to and at the state capitol through time. There's also a Chet Casper. I never had a word of conversation with Chet Casper. He recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed non-verbally. He has roles of people with spots next to the state capitol. Involved also with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with other countries and people with Russians and Americans and a former Mayor Gold and his family members and people tied to his family members, like his neighbors and things, where he used to be and where he is now. Apparently where he is now. There's a Joe Aiello, who's also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by adults and kids involved with abuses of kids with him, sexually and medical offenders of kids. I don't know. I'm not saying Joe Aiello sexually abused the kids. He has roles with proven years apart, sexual offenders of kids, and his roles with medical offenders of kids, and people putting fake transcripts and sequence shifts, planting fake exceptions. Only time I ever saw a Joel on a campus was one time after he graduated at Weathersfield camp at any Weathersfield campus, and was it was real quick. And his sister, they were planting evidences with some mayors, retired mayors from Weathersfield, and people with the fire departments intercities, and people with the spots next to schools, including with the fire department next to Trinity College, involved with my neighbors that used to be here, involved intercities next to the campuses with intelligence through time, involved with some untimely deaths at Trinity College and on my street and 1 years ago before that too, which was involved with the same house/S, and all kinds of falsified police reports against me, against my other neighbors. Even if any of it was true, they attached it to fake things. And me and them to fake ties, fake natures of ties. They also made fights between neighbors through time since I was a kid, with people increasingly involved with home break-ins in the area from other areas, and untimely deaths and things like that. As the ones involved with digital crimes, with a Dillon family and other Marines and some Air Force people involved with a Paul Kelly and his neighbors are also with WTNH and their sources, planting evidences at corners of streets with people that live at a corner of the street. Increasingly, that those are also people with others corners that I'm mentioning, and next to a school with a principal upskirt nature, involved with some sexual and medical offenders of kids further, like with the name Leahy, involved with judges, prosecutors, like a Brian Silver is involved with a Brendan Leahy and a Rick Cianfaglione. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed a John Maiano and a Timothy O'Brien and a Ray Clough are involved with federal evidences crimes with various courts and prosecutors and leaders of the kids too. People involved with the leaders of the kids involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. And further, the ones I caught were involved with the proven principal upskirt nature before that, while that was being forced. I recorded that being forced then and more involved now. So